now if we plug his into the z-score, we get 65.5 minus 69.1 over 2.8. Let's put that in our calculator. So now I'm getting a negative number, a negative 1 point, is it 2.29, negative 1.29 in my calculator. Okay, so if you go through and you do z-scores and you end up with a z-score that's negative, that's okay. That doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Z-scores can be either positive or negative. Technically, they could also be 0. What happened with his is he's got his height right here, 65.5, that's smaller than the average, so he's shorter than the average male. So when you plug it in here, we're going to take a smaller number minus a bigger number, and when we do that, that's why we get the negative over here. For both of these people, since they were tall, their height was larger than the average. So we take a larger number minus a smaller number, we get back a positive number. So here, a negative sign isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. All it means is we've got, negative z-score. That means your value is below the mean. So he's going to be below the mean. Specifically, he's going to be 1.29 standard deviations below the mean. He's shorter than the average. So that's z-scores. You'll have to use the formula to calculate them. On a test, I can give you that formula if you need it. You don't have to memorize it right now. You'll have it memorized by the time we get to chapter 7 because you're going to use it all the time, so it'll be kind of stuck in your brain. But for now, if you need it, I'll give that formula to you. So you have to be able to calculate it and to interpret it to know above or below the mean, and then this z-score represents how far away you are from the mean. Okay, so that's z-scores.
Do I have to put the negative too?
When you write out the z-scores, yes. So if they ask what's the z-score, you want to put a negative 1.29. So you want to include that negative if you type in the z-score. If they ask for the interpretation, you wouldn't put it here. You would just say 1.29 standard deviations, and then the negative sign tells you that it's below the mean and not above the mean. But if you're actually giving the z-score, you want to include that negative. That way they know that it's below the mean and not above the mean. Okay, so now we're going to talk about quartiles. We're going to be dividing our data set into 4 different parts. That's going to be quartiles. So this is kind of similar to what we did with the median. We come down here and look at a number line with all of our data values on it. Here in the median, that's going to divide our data set directly in half. You've got half the data values are greater than it, half the data values are less than it. We're going to split it up even further. So now we're going to have 25% of the data values in each of these. So altogether, we're going to have 3 quartiles, Q1, Q2, and Q3. Q2 we've already talked about. That's just going to be the median. So there's not a new way to do that. It's just going to be the same way as before. But Q1 and Q3 are going to be new. The first quartile, Q1, divides the bottom. If you look here, it divides it into fourths. So you've got 1/4 or 25% or less than it. And then 1, 2, 3 of them, 3/4 is 75%. So you've got the bottom 25% and the top 25%, and that Q1 kind of divides those. And then the second quartile, you're dividing it directly in half. You've got 50% below it and 50% above it. And then it says the second quartile is equivalent to the median. So if we're dividing our data set in half, that's the same thing as the median. All right, and then the last one is the third quartile. That's right here at Q3. So if you look, we've got 1, 2, 3/4 or 75% of the data values below it, and then just 1/4 that's above it. So over here we've got the bottom 75%, from the top 25%. Okay, and then they tell you how to find quartiles by hand. We're actually just going to skip this. We're not going to go through and do this example. Basically, the idea behind it is you'll go through and find the median first, and then you've got your data values here on the bottom. You'll find the median of just the bottom values, and then up here you'll find the median of the top values. But we're not going to do that because it's just easier to have our calculator do it. So don't worry about doing that by hand. Here's our example, but we're going to wait and we're going to do it in our calculator in just a second. So the notes are a little bit out of order. Here's how to do quartiles on the TI-84. It's going to be still using our 1var stats, the same program that we used in 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. So we're going to kind of keep with that theme now. So if we run the 1var stats and go down to the very bottom, you've got your first quartile, your third quartile, and of course your median that we already talked about previously. So they're grouped together right here, and that's how you'll find your quartiles. So if we come back to our example up here, so let me zoom